We let that one go a little long. There you go. Welcome. It is Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. Coming at you here after the market close. Still no baby on baby watch. Baby's going to baby and market's going to market. Today we are doing the single stocks edition. We got Rocco back. We'll take a look at the market and what it's doing right when it got Dikembe'd at its 200-day moving average. But today, like I said, we'll open up with the broader market. If you have a ticker or something, put it in there, and we'll take a look at it. Single stock or ETF, and yeah, let's get into it. So a below average volume day on the SPYs, but let's take a look at the dog. This is what I like. This kind of freaky looking GameStop. I'm almost like living my dream here. I'm one step closer to being Warren Kitty, talking about GameStop charts. But GameStop here had a very good day. Semiconductors, though, no. The graveyard came for him. Teck and semiconductors got this scary visitor, but GameStop did absolutely swell. Yeah, so this was the headline. Really, we'll take a look at these stocks and others. So Vertiv Holdings, that one got hammered hard, down 11%. ANET, Arista Networks, and Teck Resources, all in different spaces here. These two, ANET and Teck, were down 6%. So Vertiv Holdings, we'll take a look at what they are: electrical equipment, AI plays, and Teck Resources is a copper and zinc miner, down 6%. And then GameStop, as I said, up a big 12%. So we'll take a look at those and others. But before we do that, of course, open with the all buy and from there. Okie dokie, as they say, artichoke. All financial literary terms. Okay, so boopity boppity. All right, so here is first, we'll look at some big moves here. Tesla down 5.5% today, although it's had a big week. The stock still does not look great. Nvidia was part of the semis pain today, down 6%. That stock looks honestly awful where it is. Where else? Big moves. Palantir, but it's been a superstar. This is still a very, very bright stock. If you got to buy a stock that's ripped a lot and still has upward trajectory, I would go with Palantir today. 4% on sale. Meta down 2%. That is a star. That's off by 2%. Strategy down 4% nearly, and Amazon 2%. These you can be involved in. I don't know if today is quite the level, but these are still superstars. A lot of the other ones I'm skipping over. Apple, no interest. And I already talked about Tesla and Nvidia. Other big movers: AMD, hot trash, hot mess, down 4%. Don't want that. And Google, not a fan of that name either. That's off by 3%. Netflix, a good name. Full disclosure, the wife works there. 3% cheaper today. That stock, I've been talking about it. A shining light, and JP Morgan flat, but also a well-performing stock. So not a lot of great performers. You really have to, sift through the chaff, as they say. So here, really fast, the intraday chart. We sold right at the open at 9:30 a.m. at 576, and it just continued to go lower. Don't tell me technical analysis don't mean nothing. Because look what happened today as well. Just a small microcosm fractal example here at 2:30, 3 o'clock hour. We got right to the 200 bar average. Again, I love technical analysis because you could do different time frames and kind of analyze that through different. My watch wants to pay attention now. Through different time frames examination, right? So at 3 o'clock and 2:30, we got right there, and we touched that 567 number and went higher. We were under VWAP though all day, so weak trading. From the get-go, and we closed just barely off the mat, but still not real strength. As I zoom out here, we've been talking about SPY being in an bullish accumulation phase, ending on or around this Friday, around that 575 level. I said it's going to take a whole heck of a lot of gusto to get across 575. This is a one-year chart. My cursor is at 575 for you home gamers. And as you can see, yesterday we got to 576, almost 576 half, and then it got rejected today, 576 quarter, and it got rejected. Sends us all the way, quite a plunge of 568 half. So I don't like that price action. Now what going forward for a couple of days and beyond? So what we said holds. That is significant resistance. We've been talking about the 50-day moving average, the 200-day moving average, all these parallels, all these congruencies are leading us to this marker here, and it also coincides with the lows from January, and even as you can see where the election gap is. So very important level, and the market traders, investors are trying to make up their mind whether or not the market has the juice. I still think it does. I think it's going to take a little bit longer to carve out its rally. But so the resistance here remains at 575. I was hoping if it had that gusto, you have a little bit of earnings push, etc., in 3 weeks or so when they launch, that it launches you to this 580, 585 level. But that is, first things first, we got to hold the 21 day, and that's 574. We were not able to do that today. So market looks weak. We were not, and this we're talking about this a couple of days ago, cleanly here. Look at the rejection off of the 50 RSI. Could not do it. The SPY has not maintained a 50 RSI since February 20th. That's the last time, really. I mean, just to qualify this over a quantifying way, there's just more sellers than buyers. It's when the line gets too long, people say, I'll be good. I don't really need to buy this right now. That's what's happening with SPY. Back then, over here, it was the opposite. You'll wait in the line. It was worth it. And that's what propelled us to new highs February 19th. But since then, this is the visualization of a sell the rip market. You've been in it since February 21st. And it was the day after. The crazy part is the day after, or 2 days after, rather, when we entered the all-time high. So really, they quickly came for the sales when everyone was talking about, 625 and 650 targets. We'll see where that is for the rest of the year. But as I said, maybe a couple more days of bullishness. It got quite a rejection at the very important 200-day moving average, which is 574. It is still going up about 15 cents a day, not going flat quite yet. But I think we will be tethered with that ceiling of 575 and an absolute low. Even with this expanded volatility, I can't not entertain revisiting potentially 550. So, that's basically where I think we're going to be living for the next couple of weeks. Potentially, hopefully, you get positive numbers when earnings start and it lifts your trajectory higher again. But it looks like we're in kind of the sell market here with a lid on us at 575 and then a floor of 550 and oscillation right around that 560 mark. So I see a little bit more downside middle to end of next week. All right, let's take a look at some of these crazy movers. There were some movers today, indeed. Let's start with the upside. There were not a ton. I'm going to find them, though. They came from the Staples region sector and GameStop. GameStop, look at this chart. I haven't looked at this in a long time. GameStop, of course, if you all didn't know, sells video games that you could just basically download now on your system. But they're an $11 billion company. I think Roaring Kitty and those kinds of people still have a position and whatnot. So overall, I'm looking at the chart here. A chart is a chart is a chart. This clearly peaked last May at $65. Don't know what happened there. Ryan Cohen games, blah, blah, blah. But the market here, I'm looking at the chart, really no reason to sell this guy until it had an ugly, the week after the all-time highs in the SPY. Once this thing started to break 25 and its 200-day moving average, it starts to get a little rough here. So this week is trying to carve out and move above the 200 moving average really for the first time since it held it with gusto here when the SPY had all-time highs, if that makes sense. So this GameStop, look at what's happened here. For example, getting rejected at 50 RSI several times in February, 3 times I count, and now they surged through it 5 days ago, and now it's going to its upper Bollinger Band. That's what we would want to see in SPY, if you were long. All in all, though, here, again, the 200 moving average is starting to go down barely. It's 25 even, so it cleared it today with this big 12% rally. They had earnings. Looks like they had 30 cents reported. Estimate was 8 cents, so it looks like they crushed it. So people are getting the discs that they don't need and doing that, but maybe they're buying crypto, or I don't know, they have different spaces here apparently. But even for full target, I have 27. All right, what do we have here? Hold on, upper Bollinger Band. I have a different time frame on a different monitor. I have 26.5. This thing, I don't know if this is true for my data provider. I don't think that this is that liquid, but I see it's shed 7% after hours. I am not sure about that. So up to 11, down 7. This thing has volatility, but the close today was $28. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on this, but recent strength here, 200-day is at 25. That's GameStop. Messy. How could you not expect it to be? The overall market, as I said, NASDAQ got shellacked, down 1.8%. Much of the, as we said, semis got hammered. They flocked to Staples today. So Mondelez, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, we'll look at next. They bought the household products here. So here you see the 200-day moving average starting to roll over here. Procter & Gamble, They peaked Thanksgiving week, okay, at $180. This is a staple, so these guys don't fall absolutely through the floor, but they hit their lows relatively in the past 6 months. January 10th, oversold. And then, clearly this looks like a high here back in Thanksgiving, and the 200-day moving average it's just now starting to really go down. It's at 169 even, and a nice surge today. So now what? I think this is in vogue. I think the market is still in the overall sell the rip rally, which would give support to names like this. You would have wind to your back in defensive staple like names like Procter and Gamble. I like this one. I think this probably gets to 169. I think it wants to tussle with its 200-day moving average and potentially even as high as 170. So I like this one. I think it's in vogue for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, that's Procter and Gamble. Next one, staple. Again, Coca-Cola they came for, up 2%. That's a 1.5 sigma moves for Procter & Gamble and for Coca-Cola. These are big moves. It's up 1.8. Okay, so Coca-Cola, rather, a better name here, especially since they reported that earnings February 11th, really a change in the company, held the 200 moving average, and it gave it the benefit of the doubt it needs because it was still rising, crazy enough, even from this oversold. Very interesting chart. October through November, oversold. The 200-day moving average was still holding, though, after the stock peaked in September at 73.5, all the way to the bottom of its nadir. Love that word. All the way here, New Year's week, when China was starting to take off. Coca-Cola here hits a low of around $61 and really has gone like a rocket ship all the way to $73. So now what? After a day like today, Coca-Cola up 1.8, of course, has a big effects to the dollar, which means that you have to pay attention to yield. This is a many plays in one, also tied with the consumer going out, discretionary funds. So Coca-Cola, a very interesting trade in many different respects, and with what is the ATR on this puppy these days? $1.20 on a $70 stock. So, pretty much controlled risk. Not as more volatile name, of course, it is a staple. This has largely held 50 RSI trading. I'll give you all the way from the end of January when it was under a still rising 200-day moving average. So this chart looks good, very good. The 21-day exponential is 69.40. Cleared that today. I think this is going to try to head to, I'm not quite sure it has the juice to get past 72, but I think this is going to at least try and head towards, like I said, $72. I think maybe the buck stops there. But this continues. If you caught this one at 68, nice job. I think this one has about another $2 to go over the next 2 to 3 weeks. All right. Enough of the winners. They were really hard to find today. Let's look at the losers. These ones got their, what's handed to them. We'll start with Vertiv. I know this is a very popular name, down 11%. VRT is the ticker. This is an electrical equipment company, $35 billion on the larger side, digital infrastructure, data centers, et cetera, et cetera. So not really exactly sure what happened with the news today. Look at this clean Dikembe off the 50 RSI point, that stasis. It's almost like when I go to a lot of concerts, I'm like a rock junkie. It's almost like when it just gets so finely priced, you say, I don't really want to go that much anymore. It's a couple $100, whatever it is for a seat, and everything gets priced out, and you say, I'm good. And then momentum starts to build, and you really start to see that line start to flow and build momentum. Kind of like when you see lines of people, I don't know, the DMV or something, or a cashier, you really start to see it build. Point of that being, this has not held that ever since the absolute highs, January 24th, crazy stock. And then the next day, it brought it to the 200-day moving average. So this stock really in 2 days went from 156 to 99. So buckle up. It looks like to me the rally is complete. This rally that had, I don't really call it dead cat bounce because the 200-day just really started to roll over. But to me, the rally is complete from March 10th to March 16th, a nice 15, 16-day cycle. It's kind of all I could expect. And it has a monstrous rip. It went from 77 to 93. To be frank, my full target on this is 91. So it got to that 93, 94 mark, and now it got hit hard. The good news is I think the low here is about 71, even with vol expansion. As I say here, my lower Bollinger Band is set to 78. I think this could go potentially as low as 72 mark right on here. But I do think these lows break. I don't think this is the stock to be in over the next 2 weeks. Today looks like the start, and I think these lows from 2 weeks ago of 76, I think they break. I would not be shocked if they break over the next 2 weeks. So this one's been getting handled. Next one, ANET, Arista Networks. This one got clobbered today, down 6%. Similar chart, peak January 24th. The next day, it sends it down massively, 133 to 97. These are massive percentages of market cap one day. As I pull up here, this is a communications network. Arista Network's a $110 billion company, so absolutely massive, networking solutions for AI, and they're a global company, blah, blah, blah. Communications network. This thing, the best it couldn't muster. Again, this one it couldn't even get to the 50 RSI. This was the tops it got to, and it's the 21-day exponential moving average, and then it got to Kembade. I do not think this is the place to be in the next 2 weeks. I think this heads back towards about $75. You get more volatility expansion, and these levels from 2 weeks ago, the lows just barely hold. So in that regard, less free fall than Vertiv. But I do think this has a little bit more get back down to about $75, $76. And today very likely was the start of it. Just one more observation. The 200-day moving average is still rising, but it looks like it will stop in a week or so. It is at 96, which is a very lofty level. The stock has been able to sniff at that since February 27th, which is a month ago. Rocker, you got anything to add? No. Next one, last one on the downside. So Teck, these guys are not in that AI data-driven space. These are copper miners, okay? So something absolutely different. These guys got clobbered down 6%. So I'm bringing you the movers. Like I said, these are in metals and mining. They're in Asia, Americas, Europe. They're in the exploration, development, smelting. Gotta love the word smelting. It's a $22 billion company. They are big. They are kahunas. But this stock has not. So interesting chart. These guys peaked in price. What else is there to look at? These guys peaked last May at $55. The 200-day moving average was continuing to go up. The 55 was not eclipsed, though. We didn't have newer highs since May. And really, the 200-day moving average started to lose wind. It flatlined dead at Christmas. Literally, Christmas Eve, 47.75, stuck. The stock hasn't been able to get there since December 3rd. So really an immensely weak picture, and you know what gold is doing, absolutely rock star and gold miners. But again, this is in specifically from what I can see here, they do copper and zinc, and copper was hitting highs as well. So this stock had a low March 10th at 36.5, and now an ugly plunge. Don't like this name. I think this is on the way down for the next 2 weeks. Looks like this one wants to visit $37, potentially even lower. So I'm not so sure these lows hold. I don't like the opinion, the sentiment of the stock. Yes, versus the other ones we just looked at. This has sustained above 50 RSI, so there's not a massive line of losers or sellers or dead bodies caught up here, but just doesn't give me warm fuzzies when it's not in an awful space and it just had 52-week lows 2 weeks ago. So don't love that. This potentially, I would say $38 looks like it's imminent in about 2 weeks or so. So I guess what you define as imminent. The question to me is whether or not the lows hold. That's anyone's guess. I think this wants to visit 37. And the lows actually being 36.5. So we are splitting hairs, or zinc, I guess, at this point. All right, top three gainers of the past 5 days, no repeating charts. It's a crazy situation, but GameStop is your top gainer, up 20% in the past 5 days. But I'm seeing crazy things here after hours if this is true. Let me see here. Yeah, so at 4 o'clock, the stock, yeah, absolutely crazy. So the stock's up 20% on the week. Get this. Today was up 11.5%, and then after hours, it went from 28.5 to 25, and now starting to rally a little bit, but now it's down 7%. So I'm just doing quick math in my head. It's up 12% on the week, which would just be second place to this name, which is your winner of the week. Looks like Tim Waltz was spotted at the bottom when he had, I look at Tesla on my iPhone to have a boost. It looks like that marked the bottom there. I think it was March 10th or March 11th, although it was pretty much near the spot bottom as well. That was 217 in the stock. Tesla oversold for quite a while. From February 25th to March 11th, you had your chance of this thing just free falling. The stock peaked December 18th at 488. Seems like long ago. Again, this is a crazy mover. 200-day moving average is still going up. It is at 286. I'll round for simplicity's sake. So it's at 286. We're at 272. Now what happens? Is it the place to be for the next 2 weeks, or is it not? I do not think so. I think this starts to descend. I wish I had better things to say. It looks like everything's going more so towards the bearish side for the next 2 weeks. should I disappear and baby's going to baby. Just don't see a lot of great things to hold. Even like, we talked about the defensive, so look at that a little bit closer. But this looks like it wants to go to 240. I could, that seems, I don't want to say safe or easy to say, but I could see this easily going to, I'll say it, going to 240, potentially a low as ugly as 210. I don't think that happens, but 240, I do think it gets to in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and potentially a little lower to 225. So don't like that one either. It's had a rocking week though, up 13%, which is why we're talking about it. In the past 5 days, it's had a stellar. I went from 234 to 288. Again, kind of microcosm to the market. Got to its 200-day, and then Dikembe hard, down 6% today. All right, and the next one, this is an AI play. Tempus, I know this one's popular as well, up 11% in the past 5 days, but today getting clobbered down 9%. So we're seeing a lot of similar patterns in the chart, in the charts here, no matter, the market, zinc, AI, Coca-Cola. So for the most part, so here, I think this reached its target of, to me, it over eclipsed, honestly, getting to 62. I had a target more so closer to 55, not as big of a breakout. This thing surpassed and got all the way to 61.5, and now a hard fall down 9%. A lot of give back. So now where to? A lot of volatility in this name, as you could have imagined. This is still a $9 billion company, but on very little revenue, $700 million. These guys do a healthcare tech with AI lever. So, and they peaked on Valentine's Day at 91, and then lost more than half their value to 42. So buckle up. I think this wants to visit. I don't think this is the place to be either for the next 2 weeks. And I think this wants to go to about $44 or so. I think this gets. I think this starts to go still lower. I think that was a short-term high, and this looks like the trajectory is lower. I don't see this going higher than it did. So that's the call. And Tempus had a nice 5 days, though, up 11%. Give back started today significantly. Go to the top 3 losers of the past 5 days as we start to wrap up. XPEV. This had been a superstar. We were talking about this being on sale. Well, it's on sale. It's down 13% in the past 5 days, down 1% today. Let's take a look. Look at that chart. Absolutely stellar. A little bit of character change. It's under the 50 RSI for the first time since January 13th, when it was range bound with lower highs. So a little bit there. I think it's basing due to the volatility in the name. It's possible you get a better entry down to 19.5, but you're getting a little picky. It could happen very well. Like I said, it's a volatile name. That could be a lower target for entry. But it's very possible, though, that this is it. I think actually, no. I think you do have a little bit more to go, potentially down to this 19.5 to 20 handle even. But I do think it's going to base this week, and then next target would send you to about 24.5, I would say there. So the highs, like I said, are at 27. Not so sure of that happening in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But I do think it starts to reclaim 24.5 or so. And like I said, if you get an entry at 20 to 24, that's absolutely massive. Capitalization in that. And yes, it could buck a little bit. It did it back here in an uptrend, January 13th under the 50 RSI. But really amazing. It hasn't not traded under 40 RSI since August. And that was in a downsloping 200-day moving average, recovering from its 52-week lows when this thing was trading back at 6.5 last April. So just an amazing story from 6 to 27. I think you're getting an entry soon. And that's a superstar name in a superstar space, Gina. All right, next one, but it's had a rough week, down 13%. We were talking about getting your opportunity, and it's coming. This name I'm not sure I've even seen before, NBIS. This is a newer issue, okay? This started trading in October. Nebius Group, it's down 11.5% today. I don't know how this got through my parameters here, because I usually like to have at least stuff with a year history. So apologies for that. It must be given because I wanted to focus on volatile and liquid names, and this has a lot of volume and down 9% today. It is a software name building full stack infrastructure to service global AI. $6 billion name off of very little revenue. Not too shabby. It looks like a straight line up since they IPO'd in October, or spin off, whatever happened here. And this thing went from $14 all the way to, yeah, that's right, $51. And now, my gosh, down half, down to 25. Now what? Don't like it right here. I do not think this is the place to be for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I think the low, I think you have support at 21. Chart overall still looks pretty strong. Definitely in a downtrend significantly since February 24th. But I do think it's starting to show a little. Don't like the new lows. Don't like the new lows it put in terms of new. These are 4-month lows here that it touched day on the lows when I got to 23.86. Don't love that. Down 9% is a big move. When they sell semis, it looks like this is obviously very significantly correlated. But I do think it bases around 21. I do think the downside is somewhat intact from here. And then any bounces could honestly take it to 29. It doesn't have a 200-day moving average since it hasn't been trading for 200 days. So I'm looking at other shorter term, a 50-day, 21-day exponential, etc., and technical, support and resistance. So I do think bounces would get it to 29, but I'm not expecting that really till end of April. This is in the downside, I would say, for the next couple of weeks. And your low, I think, is around $21. And the next final one we'll look at, getting absolutely clobbered, Nike. When you question the consumer, you question, of course, Nike. And this has all different kinds of problems. Nike, as you can tell from the chart, even when they had 52-week highs last June, the 200-day moving average was going lower. And then they had a nail in the coffin type earnings June 27th. I'm sure you saw on CNBC, talked about everything else. The stock went from 95 to 74, which is a massive move for Nike in one day. Nothing but oversold behavior again in January, and now it's entered it again. 52-week low today for Nike, down 1%. Yikes. So typically not a great list to shop on, the 52-week low 52-week low list, unless you're just looking for literally dead cat bounces. I think this could bounce minimum to 69. It looks, I don't want to say minimum 69. The thing is a dog, but this really fell out of bed. It doesn't stay typically oversold for super long. I mean, that was an exhaustion. And then you got the volume spike too, June 28th, more than any time in the past year. I'm not sure that happens, but again, there's a lot of decisive things that we've been saying, a lot of areas not to be in the market, not to be the next couple of weeks. So this could cascade lower. Where to? Yikes. I don't think it just absolutely free falls from here, but you got to look at, 63 potential. I don't think that happens though. I think it tries to float potentially as high as $70, but I'm not calling for that. Potentially $69 is as good as it gets for this stock over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Do not like to, when you just common sense, don't overcomplicate it. 200-day moving average looks like this, clearly slicing lower, and you have a 52-week low today. Go shop somewhere, anywhere else. I think Rocco's opening up an advisory, and that might be a better use of your funds. All right, we will be back on Friday. Oh yeah, so lastly, on the chart list yet. So if you absolutely mastered the market perfectly, best 3 trades of the past 5 days, and they're moving right now. Technically, as of 4 o'clock, it's long GameStop, long Tesla, short XPEV. So absolutely crazy. They would have all got you 13% or more absolute moves. Talk to you Friday. Peace.